waiting room. Hi, everybody. Just going to admit everybody here. Yeah. It's early. I like it. Oh, God. Hi, Princess. Hi, Marion.
Hi.
How are you guys? Now, Princess has opened up 2 practices and moved halfway across the country and has been opening in the last 3 months. An incredible, incredible story, Princess.
Thank you.
Met yet? Princess Marion, have you guys met yet?
Did we virtually for sure? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I met you once.
At the
Hackathon.
Hackathon. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I'm gonna pick a
It's
virtual
nice
pic.
seeing you again.
Dark. Just leave the virtual background because my house gets so dark in the day. We'll just wait for a couple more. Hi, Melissa. I don't know that. Julie. Julie, met before you guys?
No.
Hi.
Nice to meet Melissa. Julie, have we met before?
No. I'm in Nigeria.
Wow.
Whoa.
What time
That
is it
is
there?
awesome.
11 p.m.
Oh,
Hey.
thanks for being here. Melissa, where are you calling in from?
Gilbert, Arizona.
Oh, there we go. So it's earlier your time.
Oh,
Early.
look at
Yeah,
that.
it's 3 o'clock our time. So
3
lots
o'clock.
of sunshine coming in from the window.
And Princess, you're in Arizona, right?
Yes, I'm
Oh.
in Tucson and Surprise.
Okay.
Awesome. Jessica, how are ya?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Have you been at one of the hackathons?
Yes, the one in New Jersey.
That's what I thought. You look so familiar. How are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Oh, I admit there's Shauna. We'll admit everybody. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
Stella, Kristen. We're just gonna. Oh, I love all your rock stars that are like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna own it. Marcella's sitting in the clouds in front of San Francisco Bridge. I love it.
How you doing, Rebecca?
Good to see you. I thought, are you in Florida?
Yeah, I am.
Oh my God, I was thinking about you today. We got to connect. If somebody wants a ton of questions about care coordination, I was like, I got to find Marcella. So we'll talk and I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Debbie Latumi, how are you? Good. They're all good. All right, guys, we're about 2 minutes. And what time do you think we should start this, Marion? Should we give it another minute? 2 more minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Kristen, have we met before?
We talked on the phone. I'm the MSU DMP student.
Ah, yes, nice to talk to you again.
And we met a long time ago at Nurses Take DC. We figured out.
That's why we had that conversation. I don't think anybody else was at Nurses Take DC on this call. But right about your alley, Marion, sort of. Except for some of our careers get in the way with that kind of stuff.
Not mine. I don't care.
That's right.
Sorry, I was trying to do other work. I'll pay attention now.
No, don't pay. You're honestly, you guys, it's going to be. I'm glad you guys are all participating. It's going to be good. I hope they connect with it. We'll give it another 2 minutes for people that are trying to figure out what's going on, because I know the email came through late, and that's the joy of trying to. That's why our board is putting together committees, so not just a couple of us are trying to get all that stuff through. So it's pretty new. She's got 100 health workers signed up. Okay.
Janello, I want to say hello to you. We haven't talked in months. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? Awesome. I am at work, so I'm just mute and my video is turned off. But I'm here.
Do what you need.
Dude, Chanel, great interview with Marion, by the way.
Much, Rebecca. Appreciate it. How are you?
Good.
Good. Awesome. Awesome.
Fatma, where are you coming in from?
I am in New York City at a COVID testing site. And so I'm here till 8 today, but they've allowed me to just kind of pop my headphones in and listen on. So.
Oh, awesome. Talk about really preparing. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
So Fatma, where are you from?
Hi, everyone. I'm a Postmaster's DNP at Penn.
Oh, do you guys
Yeah.
all know each other? Do you guys know a couple people on the call?
I definitely have emailed Maren Leary in the past. Nice to meet you via chat.
Yep, you as well. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. How about you?
Can't complain.
All right. Shall we answer? All right, you guys, I think we'll get started because I don't know how much time we're going to need on this. And so I'm super excited that you guys are participating. And I think if I tell you a little bit of the background where we start and then sort of go into some of the tips and the trades, and then we'll figure out what you guys need to do, hopefully we'll put this into a good order for everybody to understand and feel like there's a little bit of support. Because this is actually very non-traditional for a TED style format. Based on the fact that it's not going to be in person. And so it's going to come down to a lot of you preparing independently and recording this video independently, which hopefully will springboard you into future TED Talks when hopefully the stage can return to normal. And I think that's the goal. So if I give you guys a little bit of background, my name is Rebecca Love. I'm the president of SONSIEL. It's super exciting to have you guys here. Marion Leary sits on the board of SONSIEL as well, and rock stars. So we're thrilled that you guys are here. And the truth is what happened is BeaconStreet TEDx is founded by a gentleman by the name of John Werner. And John Werner, in his day job, is one of the largest investors in healthcare startups in the world. He just closed raising a fund for over $100 million. Incredibly successful gentleman who owns over 27 worldwide patents and was like MIT's Entrepreneur of the Year. I don't know, but very well connected, incredibly smart guy. And that was my break into the world of when I did my own TedXBeaconStreet. Was a friend of mine nominated me to go and meet John and have a conversation. And just recently, John and I were talking again and talking about the issue of COVID. And he said, okay, Rebecca, I am going to commit resources to making a documentary about nurses on the front lines or nurses just in general during the life of COVID. And he said, what we're going to have to do is we'll create it as a documentary in hopes that what's going to happen is we're going to make it a bigger portion going forward. So we gave the deadline as of August 31st. You guys can probably see on the website all of the responsibilities or the outlines of what we need to do. But the truth is TED Talks are a different style talk than most of us usually get. How many of you guys are public speakers? If you can raise your hand. So a lot of you guys have experience in this. How many of you guys are professors? All right, you guys are even ahead of the game. Public speaking and professors set you up in a really great spot for TED Talks. And there's two things that I want to start with you guys on. And please chime in if you guys get this. One of the best advice that I ever got from when I was preparing for a TED Talk was the question of not only, people are never going to remember really what you said, which is really discouraging because you're going to spend all of this time focusing on what you're going to say, but people are always going to remember how you make them feel. So the important thing about any TED Talk is that authenticity and the way you want that audience to feel. If you want them to feel happy, if you want them to feel sad, if you want them to feel empowered or inspired, you have to be able to convey that feeling. And this is where the magic of TEDs happen. And so my suggestion to you to be, watch like the top 10 TEDs that have ever happened in the platform. And you'll see that there's a variety of styles, but most of them create a series of emotions throughout their talks. Have you guys, everybody's seen a TED Talk, I'm guessing at some point? right? None of them keep the same tone. None of them stay bland. All of them make you laugh at some point. Sometimes they make you feel like you're gonna, well, nobody really makes you cry, but there's these moments of intensity. So there's a story that has to be told in a TED Talk. Does anybody have any questions on that? Isabel, I think that you have a question. I see your hand up. Do you have a question? Can you hear me? Might just be up along those lines. But that's, so what I want you guys to say is it's going to be very important what you say, but the reality is where you start and where you end is going to be the most important part of your story. That opening 60 seconds, in fact, they say the opening 15 to 30 seconds of any TED Talk makes or breaks the audience's impression of you. How many of you guys have heard that? You walk into a room and people make judgments even before you speak, right? They have this feeling. So how you guys even set up your stage, how you practice, how you look at the camera, those first moments, and really make eye contact with the camera, imagine an audience being there, is going to be a very important moment of connection. And Debbie, you're an expert in sort of connections and in terms of feeling emotions, and if you guys don't know this, but Debbie has a great a background in Debbie, I'm forgetting the word that I'm looking for right now, but jump in here and tie this in. How do people create connections? Like, what's one of the best ways to create connection with people?
Well, like you said, using the emotion and really feeling it, and also if you tell stories, storytelling is very important.
Storytelling is probably the most important. And Mary and Larry, you're an expert at this too, and you're an expert writer on those. But is there anything that you want to jump in and say on that?
No, I mean, I think crafting your story, giving it a beginning, a middle, and end, and trying to really always come back to what the, try and lead back to the story is really helpful, and it draws people in a very meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to pull up, you guys. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Does anybody else jump in, want to talk about this real quick? Shelly Ann's here again. Hi, Shauna. I'm going to share with you guys a couple articles that I thought were pretty good on the TED side. Here, let me see if I can share here. From here. So there is a ton of resources on the internet for you guys. There's a ton of them. But this one I thought was pretty good because it sort of speaks to some of my thought, like this. So the truth is that who you guys are talking to, you got to identify who you want to reach. If you're trying to reach other nurses, the topic of know your audience is very important. Who you're going to speak to is very, very important, because if you're trying to speak to the general public, and you're talking in highly specific medical and nursing terms, or experiences that are very sort of complicated, the general public's not going to understand that. And the idea, I think, for this TED series is to present nursing to the general public so they understand who you are, who and what nursing does, that expertise, that intelligence, that moment of stress. It's about making nursing real to the audience in a way that they've never heard it before. There's been TV stories like ER, there's been, Grey's Anatomy, and every single time those stories portray nurses second to leading characters constantly. And the truth is, this documentary is about portraying nurses at the front. So I think that your audience, for the purpose of this TED Talk, is the audience of your friends and family who, when they currently ask you questions, you would say, hey, I'm just a nurse, or, I did these things, but you don't dive into the details. Does anybody have any questions on that or thoughts on that? Don't be shy. Does that make sense for you guys? Knowing your audience, who you're going to attach to, what's going to make sense to them. So for that situation, you need to practice. And when I say practice, you practice to people who are your audience. Now, for me, the audience, you would assume, like, I'm married, my husband, I would go and try to talk to him with my own TED Talk. It did not work, right? Like, he criticized all the reasons it didn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. You need to find other people to practice on that hear this story, but also give you good feedback. For me, surprisingly, that was my 10-year-old daughter who I practice with. And Marion, your daughter would be great to practice with. But the truth is you guys got to practice so they give you feedback. Now, how you should structure or practice your TED Talk, or at least what worked for me, and what a lot of TED Talks do, is that you start out structuring your conversation in the way that basically you do it by paragraph. TED Talks that are delivered best are delivered by memorization. Rote memorization is hard. How many of you guys have told your story before? You've told it, Princess. How many of you, the rest of you guys, have told your, yeah, so a couple of you guys have. Where people fall down is they let somebody else try to tell their story, or they edit it so it doesn't feel natural to the way you speak or the way you present. So if you guys can get used to telling your story, and when you practice with people, you know those things when people lose interest, right? And one thing as nurses that we're really good at is recognizing when people aren't paying attention, right? That sixth sense, their eyes are sort of moving to the side, they're looking bored, whatever. That is an idea of what you want to cut. So how you do it is you put everything in paragraph form, very simple to the way that you guys see this article. You want to go step 1, the story of my beginning. Step 2, the disaster that happened that made me be a nurse. So you sort of break it out, your paragraphs, and flow to memorize with a title, a paragraph, title, transition, to make it very easy to flow. Does that make sense to you guys? So sort of like you see the article here, it says 1, know your audience, couple sentences that tell the story of knowing your audience. 2, keep it simple. But this is how you should also lay out your TED Talk, to make it easy and transferable, and so that you can memorize it and also easily edit it. You should be writing it down in paragraph form with a title so that it triggers your transitions and it makes it easy for you to remember where you are. And if you get off track, you can refocus back to where you were in your story. Any questions on that? Okay.
And I will just say, in terms of practice, make sure, I mean, Rebecca sort of said this, but make sure you're practicing out loud. Reading it over, memorizing it in your head is one thing. Actually having to perform it out loud is something completely different. And then having to perform it out loud in front of people is something even more different. So usually my suggestion is to, write it down, read it to yourself a number of times so you're comfortable with it, then start practicing out loud, and then start practicing with other people so that you get into that flow.
100%, you were 100% right, Marion. Like, the truth is, you guys, you're going to think you got it in your head, right? And one of the best ways that worked for me to actually get over my fear of talking was I got in the car and I drove. And I would listen to myself in the car, because it would get very weird. Like, everybody tells you practice in a mirror. And like this Zoom, doesn't it feel weird to look at yourself when you're talking anyway? Like, to me, it always feels weird to look at yourself. When I got in the car, I would be able to sort of speak back to myself, and it was flowing, and I could forget, and I could yell at myself. So driving and practicing, once you got to that point of memorization, was really helpful. Now, Isabel, I see you have a question. So can you unmute? I'm trying to unmute you, but it won't work. So can you, what's your question? Do you have a question?
Unmute. No, I'm sorry. I must have accidentally hit the question button. But
oh, no,
whatever you're saying is amazing. So thank you. And I totally resonate with the driving aspect of it.
Good. We all find our things. Some of you guys might be able to do it when you run, but running and talking, I mean, there's some of us that are really in shape, not me, might work for you guys too. So give out some other ideas, but driving was a big one. And Olga, your hand's raised. Olga Kagan, any question on that?
Actually, I do want to have a question, because I'm somebody who talks and walks. Like, I can't be talking and standing in one place. So I'm just curious, when you record, because with the recording, I could imagine it's being more of a in one place where you just either sitting or standing. So I just wanted to get your feedback on that a little bit.
So what, I guess where the missing first step that I told you guys is you should write out your talk. You should write out your talk, or if you can't write it out first, some of you, I remember Jaleel Johnson. I don't know if you guys know Jaleel Johnson, but Jaleel Johnson has an incredible nursing story, and he's the CEO of Show Me Your Stethoscope. He wrote part of his chapter in our book called The Rebel Nurse Handbook, and I called him after reading it, and I said, Jaleel, this like made me cry. Like, how did you write this? And he goes, I didn't. I dictated it. And his story was so personable to him. His story of challenge and triumph, if you guys haven't read it, he started off, why he became a nurse or even in CNA is he was fired from selling a water job. He was fired from a dishwashing job, and he had a new baby at home. And he had lost his dishwashing job, and he came home, and the only job or school program that he entered in was the CNA program. And if you know Jaleel's story, he now has a PhD in nursing. But his story is of such struggle and movement and things that he knew it so well, it was so personable to him that he could just speak it. So if you guys feel like your story, that story you've always wanted to tell is that personable to you, that it's easier for you to speak it first and then edit, do it that way. If you're sitting there and saying, look, this is nursing during the era of COVID. It's not your whole life, but you definitely want to tell part of your life in it. You want to tell what's going on in COVID so that the world can understand what nurses are going through in COVID. You may just need to keep writing this out. And as you first write it out, I don't know about you, but the way you write and the way you speak are very different, at least for me. And do you guys feel the same for you? Your writing style is different than your speaking style? So sometimes the way you write things, you realize you would never speak it that way. So it's good to sit down and practice as you're writing it and be like, whoa, I keep bumbling those 3 words. Like I would never say business of the University of California. I'd always say University of California Business School, Berkeley, right? Like whatever that is, you got to get used to it. So start by writing it. If you're not recording it, you can sit in those. But after this is done, because you're going to record your TEDx standing, the more you get comfortable practicing how that environment is going to be, the better you're going to do. And just to be careful that you understand this, I do this thing wrong all the time. I use my hands a lot. Technically, that's going to be very distracting on a TEDx. You also want to maintain a distance of about 3 feet around you. And if you sort of step, so there's some movements that we'll talk about this more in the next session, but how you move during the time that you speak. If you step forward, there's a meaning of emphasis. If you step back, it's sort of pulling the audience back into your story. There are moments of engagement that you use movement, but for the purpose of this TEDx, the less movement, very concise, moving and using your hands at specific moments to make impact is how you're going to want to get comfortable. So go ahead and start by speaking at seating, but as you guys go, really you should record yourself standing and practicing and moving with the words and where you want to be. So some people I think are going to be like marking out spots on the floor, and if you're really good, you're going to be like, at step 3, I'm going to be standing here, or I step forward on my transition. I don't know, this is really new for us, but we're going to work hard to get you forward on it. Any other questions that you guys have before we keep going? All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, please, Shauna.
When you say know your audience, so not in a general TED Talk, but for these purposes of this documentary, is our audience nurses or like educating the public about, okay.
Yes, you want to educate the public. You have to assume that I think, and you guys speak to this, I think everybody thinks they know nurses, right? I think everybody thinks I know somebody, my mom's friend is a nurse, my roommate was a nurse, right? But do they really know nursing?
No.
No. So you have to tell them, and is your opening statement that shocking? You thought you know nursing, I'm gonna unveil it for you. Is it that moment, that opening that helps you understand? So you're speaking to the general public. So you need to set the stage with that opening very simply for the nurses to have an experience, to the general public, so they understand the story that you're about to set for them. Does that make sense? Now, it can be, like when I started my talk, one thing that I learned very early in a TED Talk, nobody introduces themselves at the beginning of a TED Talk. Those that do don't make it big, I guess. I don't know why. But people don't like to be told, and when you stand up and you introduce yourself, people feel that they're being lectured to. When you open up with in 1854, the British government was entrenched in a bloody battle called the Crimean War. You start telling a story. Each of this is a storytelling. I used to sell water. I was fired from my job, and the only job affording to me with a young baby at home was to become a CNA. Suddenly, you transport the audience. And that's what you guys need to do in that moment. So you have to keep it simple, in the sense that the audience is not an expert. They're not an expert in medicine. They're not an expert in, nursing. The truth is the general public, I don't know if you guys know this, I just heard paper on health literacy, but the average population doesn't even read at a 5th grade level in the United States. Now, the people that listen to TED Talks, I'll be honest, probably have a higher baseline than 50% of the population out there. But the truth is you guys are trying to reach everybody. So keep it simple. Don't talk about complex subjects. If your audience can't understand it, like if your kid can't understand the topic that you're talking about, likely is it's probably too complicated and you got to break it down. My husband always makes a statement that makes it really, always has hit home for me. He said, if somebody that's really smart can't break down complex topics so that I can understand them and make it simple, it means that it's not truthful, right? If people can't understand you, they don't trust you. And the one thing about TED Talks, I don't know if you guys know this, but it is the 3rd most trusted media platform in the world. I don't know what's more, but I know that somebody that I was told that people who do TED Talks, those talks are considered the most trustworthy form of media in the world. So this is what you owe the audience. You owe them to be trusted, and you owe them to make it simple so that they can trust you, okay? Again, emphasize connection over content. The truth is, you guys, this woman speaks, the best engaged listeners build your speech from an emotional place rather than content. Now that's going to be hard for some of you guys who are scientists or lawyers or things like this. Now the truth is you can use statistics to support this. 88%, I don't know if you knew this, but 88% of all employers in March of 2020 moved their employees onto remote working. Did you guys know that? 88% of employers across the United States. That's an interesting statistic, right? But it also speaks to it. But who has a question on that, you guys, with regards to an emotional place as opposed to a content place? Does that make sense to everybody?
No.
Yeah, any thoughts or any questions on that one?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please. Who's speaking? I'm missing them.
It's
sorry, go ahead.
Princess. I've often kind of between using I, personal, and we, so because I've been sitting here, and since I got that, that's the battle that I've been fighting in my head. Like, okay, when you say I, you're going personal, your personal story. Which one is more powerful, even though you want to talk about, at the end of the day, it's about nurses as a whole. So you're shaking your head, so I'm sure you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, and so I'm gonna have everybody else jump in on this as well. I is your personal story. We is when you are asking the audience, in my interpretation in this sense, is we is being used when you're asking the audience to do something for nursing or think about something bigger. We, in this moment of COVID-19, have been challenged, understaffed, and put at risk at a rate that we had never experienced before in our professional lives. It sets the stage for something bigger than yourself. Marian, do you have some thoughts on that? Anybody else have some thoughts on that?
I totally agree with what you just said. Yeah.
So use we when you reference the profession, because you are all part of the profession, and you guys are now becoming the voice of nursing. Really the first cohort of nurses that are ever going to be seen on TED. What that means is that you're carrying a responsibility almost to represent a profession, 4 million in the United States, 18 million of us worldwide. We as a profession are looking to you to talk about the voice of what we're seeing in COVID-19 and illuminating to the audience, to the general public, the struggle, but the power that our profession exhibits during this time. Does that make sense? It is a big responsibility. I'm not trying to scare you guys. I know a couple of you guys are writing like, I'm nervous, and you should be. If you weren't nervous, I'd be like, okay, guys, you guys are way too confident. It's never a good thing, but a little bit of stress is a really good thing for that. And I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody that wanted to still, and I have a hard time checking that stuff. I'm not really good with this whole thing, but I think we're good. So that's it. Anybody else want to add something to that, you guys, in regards to?
Becca? Quick question. So, we're supposed to prepare a 10 to 15 minute video talk. And within that 10 to 15 minutes, the TED producers will condense down to 5, depending on what they hear, what they like, and would the sequence of the story or presentation be mixed around also, depending on how it weaves into the documentary?
It could be. However, so here's what, and I even realized this looking back at my own TED Talk, right? Like, I think mine came in at 14 minutes. I had practiced at 12. It will always go longer than you anticipate by 2 to 5 minutes. So my honest suggestion to you guys is to prepare a talk. This is a highlight. This is the best of you trying to make a point in a very quick time frame. Try to position your TED Talk at about 6 to 8 minutes so that you're coming in around 10, because I think there is a chance that the whole talk will be heard. We know from experience on TED Talks, almost the most watched and the most endeared are under 10 minutes in length across TED platforms. People just don't pay attention. So that's why your first statement, the middle of your story, and how you engage with people captures their audience. And it's really hard if you're trying to give your life story. So the choice that you guys got to do is, what is the point of your story? Why are you telling this? And if you can get that down, which is actually going to be the hardest, actually, this to me right here, you guys see this? Write your topic in one sentence is going to be the hardest thing that you do. Because the truth is everybody who gives a TED Talk should have a point. Mine was about just showing that nurses should be innovators, that we can be innovators, and we're the best at it because of all these situations. And I had tried to show that that was the goal of my TED Talk. What is going to be your goal? What are you going to say to the audience? And we're going to come back to that so we can see it. But that is the hardest one. Get ready to write what your topic is within one sentence. So be authentic. I remember I was just having drinks with our neighbor, cocktails. I can say that because I'm well over the age to do that. And there was a gentleman over in the audience, and what he said to me is, "Oh, Rebecca, I wrote the best TED Talk for my former CEO at this life science company, and he totally botched it." And I thought to myself, I don't think a TED Talk could be written by somebody else because it's not authentic. And the truth is, if you're going to make somebody feel something, there are subtleties in the way we look, the way that we smile, the way that we emphasize words that are not even, we're not even aware of that we do them, right? But you can tell when your kids are lying to you, right? Like, they can look you straight in the eye and totally lie to you. And you can tell by the flick of their eye to the left that they are totally lying to you, even though you know it. And the truth is, it's because that's not authentic. So when I tell you guys the truth is that being authentic, and one of the hardest things for you to do is learning to be authentic when you're recording yourself on TV or on video, because it becomes very monotone, especially if you're sitting there and trying to read the script in your head. Like, some speakers may try to sound like someone they admire instead of being themselves, right? Like, you gotta be yourself. Some of the best things about TED Talks are when people talk about why they failed, or why they got it, or when they got embarrassed, or moments of the hardest in the things, because it opens them up and makes them feel real. And the truth is, some of the biggest TED Talk failures, and I sit behind the scenes a lot, and I see, like, John invites us, and I will hear like heads of state come in and speak, and their TED Talk never even makes it to the main website, because they tried to sell the audience. They tried to sell them to change their beliefs. But the difference is, you guys, is right here. It's talk to persuade them, not to just inform them. If you're informing somebody and it feels like a lecture, they're not really interested. What you're trying to do is engage them by being authentic, to persuade them into seeing something they haven't been before. So focus on those key points and you're going to get there. Again, diversify your delivery. You guys, okay, Olga, real quick, go ahead.
So I guess my question is, would you recommend that there's some sort of moral to what you're saying, a story or some sort of takeaway from your story that you want to convey to the audience?
Always. I mean, always. You guys are trying to persuade or leave a change of impression or ask them to do something. TED Talks either give information, they give information in a way that persuades people to take action, right? Like most TED Talks, if you go back, what you guys is assigned between now and the next time we meet is watch some TED Talks and realize what people ask of you, right? Most TED Talkers sort of ask you something, but you don't realize you're being asked, right? Like I asked the audience, just engage nurses in innovation, right? I don't know if they knew that I was asking them, but that was the point of the talk, is I wanted them to see this and help that become a reality, right? What in your TED Talk are you trying to ask the general audience to do differently? Now, I'm not sure that many of the TED Talks have ever come out and said, and I need you to do this, but they set the stage. Mine was, here's a couple statistics. 50% of new grads leave the bedside. I'm concerned no one's going to be a nurse. And if nobody's a nurse, what does that mean, right? If all the nurses are going to leave after COVID-19, what is that going to do to the world? You know, like these are the things, like you give them you lead them with your questions and you lead them with your information at the same, now that I reflect back, I knew none of this when I was doing this, you guys, but it was the effort to persuade. It was all in the effort to persuade. So again, you guys, diversify your delivery. We'll talk about that again. Stories can be about yourself. You can use humor, make fun of yourself. People love it when you make fun of yourself or situations because, again, nobody wants to stand up there and listen to somebody who thinks they're so great, right? Like I stand up and I'm like, I am so great. I've accomplished this. I started this company. I've done this and this. Like you just sound like you're bragging. The goal is not to brag here. It's about making others feel aware. I think it's about making other people believe they could do it if you did it. And that you inspire them because you seem not unattainable, but you seem like that everyday human being who just kept working hard and through it, and they can almost see yourself in that story. And that's called mirroring your story sort of to the audience so that you become relatable. Shake it up. So this is some questions that I still got to go back to John with, is if we're going to if you guys are going to use PowerPoints or not. And I don't think the idea of this documentary is to use PowerPoints, because I think that the idea of this documentary, unless you guys really need one, you might have to be able to send them to me afterwards. One, I think they'll trick you up. That was one of the hardest things for me, was keeping my time and rhythm on. So don't plan on right now using things, but if you have one or two slides you want to send me later that could we could throw it in highlight, let us know. But the reality is I think we're trying to show nursing in the raw, who you are. That's not hidden behind a slide, which I know sounds weird, but I think that's sort of the goal. But we can talk. If anybody has a major problem with that, let me know. Again, don't lecture the whole time, and you're not going to have time for questions. So let's talk. Now we're going to go into the second ones. But what other questions? Anything coming to top of mind for you guys on this? All right. This I liked a lot too, was how to write a TED Talk. Now there's a whole bunch of these out there as well, but I really liked this one. Don't ever talk about a subject matter you don't know anything about. So if you guys that are on this call are going to talk about nurses on the front lines, but you're not on the front lines, that would probably not be the focus of your talk, right? Now, so you're not going to say like, I imagine that standing by the bedside and seeing this is really upsetting. I don't think that's quite the one. Now, there's of course a perspective when you use the word we, and what we heard and what we saw and what we felt is different. Like when I talk and I said, I watch the nursing community on Facebook, and what I saw was that we as a profession were in trouble, that the nurses are posting X, Y, and Z, right? Now, that's firsthand experience. So you can go ahead and reflect on some of that, or why you took action in a certain way or things like that. But the truth is choose something that you are unique in. Your understanding, your knowledge is something that people are like, oh, just shut up about that topic, right? Like that's something that we all know. So if you guys are an expert on something, choose a topic that you have a unique perspective on. Let's see. So the truth is, the idea is because you want to connect, and it means that you should be unique. And that's how you guys are going to, this is why some people said, well, how are you going to have 12 nurses that are by the bedside talk about their experience? Aren't they going to be similar? I'm like, not one. That's why the public needs to hear this talk, is because they all think we do the same thing, right? Like this is why we got to do it. Also, it's really important when we talk about that perspective on persuading, why should people care about your topic? A key thing to remember about any speech, and I'm going to read this to you, is that your topic shouldn't serve you. It should serve your audience. You're not giving the topic to serve you. You're doing it so that they hear something different. When preparing for a TED Talk, it's easy to get overwhelmed with the pressure. Instead, focus on what your audience can gain from your idea you're delivering. Ask yourself not only why they should care, but why they need to care. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions, thoughts? Marion, thoughts? Olga, Shauna, anybody? Shelly Ann? Diane, any questions? Any insight here? Okay. Again, you guys, the hardest thing that you're going to do is this. because it summarizes your goal. Hello?
Hello?
Who just is talking? I'm missing her.
Kim.
Hi, Kim. Do you have a question?
I didn't realize I was on. Sorry, I apologize.
I'll put it on you. Don't even worry. So write your topic as one sentence. This sounds simple, but it's going to be likely the most difficult and most important step of the entire process. Distilling your idea into one single sentence will save you from going off topic. This one sentence trick is a guidepost you can refer to throughout your preparations. Make certain that everything you're writing and sharing supports the main point you're trying to make. Anything else should be dropped in the I don't know about you guys, but there's often in my life, I find that sometimes I go off topic, right? Like I start at one place and I'm like, wait, how did I get over there? I had a point, right? Do you guys ever do that? Like you're making an argument and you're like, wait, but there was something I really wanted to say. And the truth is, that's what a TED Talk is. There is always a topic that you want to get back to. There's always a focus. And getting back to it so that it revolves around it, the truth is, all of you have the potential to tell 100 different stories. You all have the potential to share many different things. And you wish that you're going to be able to tell them all. I still wish, like there's so much more that I, wish I could tell. And funny things is when people would edit my speech, they would cut out certain things that I thought was fascinating and they thought was just boring. The truth is there's a balance there. So keep what you love about it, because if that's your true authentic self, it stays with the story, but try to get back to your point. Don't go off topic. Don't go on a tangent, as they say. That's not the time for a TED Talk. A tangent is not a TED Talk. Discover the story in your topic. People come to expect a TED Talk to be heavily delivered like a story. Exactly to Debbie's point, it's storytelling. Stories are more engaging for the audience and will keep them interested in your topic. If you go up on stage and rattle off a bunch of facts and figures, you're going to lose your audience quite quickly. People don't want to be talked at, they want to be told a story. According to research found on Harvard Business Review, storytelling not only helps people focus better, but it also helps them retain information and compels them to change. Fortunately, all data has a story to tell. You just have to find it. Now, all of you, I'm guessing a lot of you guys have kids. And also, we know that throughout time, it's stories that are passed down by generation to generation to generation to teach a lesson, right? I, with my 8-year-old who's been driving me insane, lately I've had to sit down and tell the little boy who cried wolf time and time again. Because as many times as I told him, don't cry when you're not hurt, did not sink in. Storytelling has the ability to convey a message in a way that makes it relatable. It's not telling the person what to do. It's drawing a portrait, an image, a story for them so that they understand the meaning. Does that make sense? Storytelling is what you're doing. So again, the difference is telling your child not to eat or eat dessert, before dinner is not the same as telling them a story of, I don't know, Willy Wonka, for example, of what happens in those situations, right? The story is what makes the lesson applicable. The truth is, you guys, as much as I say you're not going to stand on stage and tell them what your name is and what your title is, the truth is you have to introduce who you are into this story. Why you are who you are today. Why you became a nurse. Why you chose to pursue, why you went into science, or why you went into mindfulness, or why you stand on the front lines of COVID-19 in a parking lot in New York City. Why you did that. Who are you? The truth is that topic matters. The topic that you're going to choose has to tie into that natural ability to relate to the story. So humans naturally gravitate toward vulnerability and authenticity because it helps us relate. All of us have experienced hardship. All of us have experienced failure. It is the brave, it is the risk takers that go out there and admit it publicly. They laugh about it. They see that if they hadn't failed, if it hadn't happened, their life would not be where they are today, so that they even have a story to tell. You guys are here because you've all challenged the status quo. You're risk takers in yourself. You have a story to tell because you bet on things that people maybe in other situations wouldn't have been. And why people listen to TEDs is because it speaks to their own internal ambitions, that they too potentially could change the world. So, including 1 or 2 personal antecedents that demonstrate both your personal values and your relationship to the topic are going to be very important. Marion, you always have a great statement, and Marion always says, I'm an advocate first before I am the director of innovation at UPenn, right? You do a great job presenting some of this, and do you want to talk to this just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a way to infuse into your story what your passion is and why you're telling this story more about you in a way that's not going up there and saying, I'm Marion Leary, I'm the director of innovation, but crafting it again, always coming back to the story aspect, making it more of a story that people are drawn into. So like Rebecca said, I always say I'm an activist first and everything else second. And, you know, that one sentence gives people a sense of who I am. I'm not telling them, you know, I do this, this, and this, but it frames it.
And to Marion's point, that statement is very important. It doesn't tell you what you do. It tells you who you am. It speaks to your soul. So it's not, I am a nurse practitioner that, you know, sees this, or I am an entrepreneur who does this. It's, in a sense, it's speaking to your beliefs. By saying I'm an activist speaks to what motivates you. So you can say I am a nurse first, but you're going to have to explain that more. Does that make sense for you guys? So it's a difference between telling them what you do versus who you are. And that's really important distinction for TED Talks. Making it universal is hard, but this is something that I know if there's one profession on the face of the earth that can speak universally, it's nurses. Because every day you guys have ever practiced, or the education that you had, or even if it's been 10 years since you've been by the bedside, we had to cross thresholds to deal with people so vastly different from ourselves that we had to learn to adapt to be able to relate. And that is what is the most important thing. So for instance, if you're passionate about mindfulness, Debbie Lynn Toomey, because it's helped you overcome speech anxiety, you need to share that. TED Talk should be about universal for all audiences to get. Take it a step further. Think about the universal problems that mindfulness can solve. So it helped me become over speech anxiety, but look at, if I scaled this, how can it help other people to focus better at work, be more present with their families, and how many less divorces? I don't know what it is. But the truth is you take that universal topic, that one moment that caused you to identify who you are, and then really you make it a universal message so that it applies to everybody. So I'm a nurse innovator, but the reality is that we're all innovators. If you see a problem that you want to solve, you're an innovator. And the world needs more innovators. Do you see the logic just presents and steps upon itself? And that, you guys, are the 2 articles, and I will share them here for you guys, that I thought were really good as a first guide for this first meeting. But the reality is I want to hear from you guys on some thoughts and some questions and how you, and what we didn't hit on that you guys need, you know, we need to talk about. So go ahead and take yourself off mute and give us some questions.
Rebecca, how many presentations, TED Talks will be selected? Does it depend on how many people sign up, or how is that determined?
In all honesty, it's not going to be my choice, which I know is frustrating to hear. My goal is to be honest, I don't know how many are coming in. I think he's going to try to do try to get everybody in. And that's sort of what I've pushed him on. So it might end up being 2 documentaries about an hour each long. What's going to mess people, the good and the bad of working with TedXBeaconStreet is they are one of the top 10 TEDx platforms in the world. You're going to be featured on the same platform that last year was the president's wife of Greenland, of the man who invented the micro engine from MIT. The people that speak on John's platform just blow my mind. So he is used to people, now not to stress you guys out, but some of these people that speak on this platform spend months, if not years, with professional coaches getting their message right. Now we recognize that's not going to be this case. I've given you guys 60 days to get this story done, and I'm asking you to do it by yourself in your rooms during COVID while you're working full-time jobs and managing kids, right? Like most of us don't have the luxury of time and resources to do this. And he gets that. So those that are going to be selected, you guys, and why I showed you these two articles first was because it's about the story. Each of you has a story to tell, and I think he'll cut and edit, and I have a feeling he'll try to get everybody in. And if it's simply, and I want you to say at the end of your TED Talk at the very end so that we capture it at the end, like end your thing and then leave with, my name is, Debbie Lynn Toomey, and I'm the founder of this, or I work at Tufts Medical Center during the COVID crisis, because I have a feeling everybody will get a spot. The question will be, what stories are going to be the ones that bring it home? Right? And it's tough. Everybody hopefully, and so I don't want you to be discouraged. And this will not be the first nor the last opportunity, I think, with TedXBeaconStreet. It was really pushing him, and he always got this. He always got it. Like when they started to study that no nurses had ever been on TED Med, that's just absolute insanity. Like he gets that this is it. And I've said to him, this is not typical. What I think will come of this is more, well, I think it's going to become a defining moment for most of you that you prepared for this. It's going to teach you some good skill sets. Those who are going to be prominently featured are going to work. By the time I prepared for my TED Talk, I was rehearsing 3 times a day, if not more, right? It was before bed. It was into my daughter, was before anything. As I was driving around town, it was really, and it was getting that story down in a way and a delivery and things like that. Because at the time, I didn't think that I was going to go forward with doing it. I want you guys all to bet on yourself here, right? This is your story. This is your time. You're representing the profession of nursing to the world. And I can't tell you what that final is going to look like, but I think he's going to work really, really hard to make sure that everybody is heard. But again, it's not, you can't read a script. Like if you guys are like watching it yourself afterwards and falling asleep, then you probably have to record that again. Does that make sense? And oh, one other thing. And Marion, you guys could also talk to this, anybody else who speaks. The more that you may feel like you're being overly animated on the camera, it's still going to feel like you're not animated enough. So those are some things, practice that first time, practice recording, and you'll be like, oh, it's so animated, and you watch it and you're like, I guess I wasn't as animated as I thought. Anybody else have insight into that? No? Okay, so that's another one of them. So go ahead, what else? What other questions do you guys have?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm so sorry. This is Isabel. I just want to say I presented a small talk to my faculty at Columbia, and that's very true to the statement that you say that nurses are underrepresented. And it's also really important to say how important it is to speak well and how to write cohesively and cogently, because people were very surprised that I could write, and I was kind of taken back by that. I was like, excuse me, I've never even been given the chance to show off my skills. So I just really want to say that it's such a great time for us to shine bright.
You guys are absolutely right. Like the things that we are undervalued on just shock the heck out of me. The other, and Marion's, I don't know if you guys know this, one of the leading published nurses in the world, right? So the other day I'm writing an article that my company's publishing, and they said, oh, we should take out Rebecca being a nurse. She's not really a nurse. And I said, for years, I've been trying to like get nurses recognized, and you're telling me that I can't write as a nurse? Like it will undervalue what I have to say because I'm saying it as a nurse, right? To your point, Isabel, for years, they just don't think it. And they don't think that and they also thought that by me adding an MSN title behind, an RN title behind my name, that people would think that it was less valuable than me saying I'm a vice president. And I said, everything that I've done in my life as a nurse is the only reason I can speak on this topic. Being a vice president in no offense, in an Optimize or X type of company, to me, feels like sales. Me being a nurse makes it real. So to your point, Isabel, this is the opportunity for people to realize that you have something to say, because often as nurses, and you know who says this really well is the other Shauna Bettler, we as nurses have been assigned to deliver tasks. They give us our tasks to do. Every time we step across a shift, right, you have a list of things you have to hang this medication, change that wound, empty that bedpan, take the vitals, blah, 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 blah. We are task setters. Our administration never looked to us to do anything outside of deliver tasks in a lot of ways. They don't ask us to think in a lot of situations. They say they do. They don't ask us to develop proposals, because that's not really what we were designed to do to accomplish our job. And we need to make sure that that is distributed differently. So that's it. Yes, doers, not thinkers. Okay, who else has a thought or comment on that?
I have a question.
Please.
I'm still trying to figure out are we going to be standing in or sitting since this is virtual?
You're going to be standing, Princess, and you got to record it. You want to be standing. All the instructions are here on the website, but I will get it for you. So I'll put them up for you guys. But you want to be standing so that you guys can see what's going on. So you're going to be standing. Think about the standing in a circle, like that you're in a stage and recording yourself. I have it right here. Any other questions on that, you guys? I do see this. You guys still see this page that I'm on? I can't tell for sure if you guys can see what I'm sharing. Can you see the SONSIEL page?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we can.
Okay.
What kind of background do you recommend? A white wall, a green screen?
No, a white wall is better, or a black wall, or something that you're going to stand out. Good lighting and sound. Look at the camera when you speak. I thought I added some new ones. Oh, right here, this space right here for you guys. Let's go through this. Do choose a quiet location, home office, lab, symbolic location with no movement in the background. Don't shoot against a plain wall. Keep some space behind you, and if possible, add interesting objects or plants. So even like you guys see me in this background, like I put a light in behind to make it look more personal. So you want to do that. Don't record too close to the camera. So what we usually do is when you get really excited, you're like, hey! You don't want to do that, right? Like you want to have some space between you and this. Do ensure you have adequate light on your face. That is the hardest thing for most of us. I know they have those like circle things that sort of light on your phone. You want to, yes, the mood light, that's exactly, you can do those. Don't put a light or a window behind you. Being backlit will make it hard to see you. Do film in a room that does not have too much echo. So lots of glass windows can create an echo sound. And do use your iPhone or the back of the camera. You're not going to see yourself because it's going to be in selfie mode. So you need to have, as I said, you need to have a friend help you. The ring lights often have a holder for smartphones. So you guys see this? All the directions are given here for you to do it. I don't want you to worry as much about your space right now as getting your talk outlined. Have you guys started? Have a portion of you guys started already? Great. Okay. Do you have a partner in this? Somebody that you've sort of solicited to review this or edit it, or a buddy who's going to help you do this? We should find one, right? That would be a good thing. And I said, mine was my daughter. If you don't have a daughter who's, into that kind of stuff, we probably should find somebody that said. We could rent out Marion's daughter for some of this ones. So find a buddy is exactly what Marion said. Just if you don't feel like you can find a buddy, please message me. And I can see if some of our SONSIEL founding members would take some time to spend time with you. I'm not going to lie. It's really hard to listen to the same speech over and over and over again. And that's hard. So you may want to solicit 3 or 4 friends and say, hey, can I just practice in front of you? And then you talk to them once, they all give you feedback, and then you practice again in front of them. And then again, record yourself. Go to your mom, go to your dad. Don't be shy to use those people. Any other thoughts that you guys have on that? Okay. We have about 4 minutes left. Any other questions that you guys have?
I have a colleague.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Julie, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So is this restricted to the experience in the United States only?
Oh, I love that you're going to come and talk to us about what's going on in Nigeria. I mean, amazing. Just amazing. Thank you. And any other nurse? One thing about SONSIEL, you guys, and Marion can speak to this well. When we founded this organization, it wasn't about your degree level. It wasn't about who you were or where you came from. We really wanted anybody who felt like they could make an impact in the world of nursing to become a member. And one thing that I think we've all felt in nursing is that there is a hierarchy, and getting into that hierarchy is really, really hard. And that's not what we're about at SONSIEL. So my goal is, and what you put out in the world will come back to you. So if you guys have friends right now that you're like, you know what, I wasn't gonna tell them about this, but I really should tell other nurses to get involved and do this. What you put out in the world is going to come back. So please share this with other nurses who might have a story to tell. Those who are like, man, I mean, that story should be told. And I can't tell you strong enough that paying it forward, it will change your life. It's changed mine. So please share it with others as well. So that's it. What other questions? I know we have about 3 minutes.
Rebecca, do you have any ideas of what some of the potential topics of interest would be for this particular venture?
So, Olga, I think it's specific to you. And I think, you know, your unique perspective is being in academia at this time. And, you know, what is your big experience of dealing with nursing students and the front lines, or what your thing is? Again, speak to something that you know something about. Don't speak to a topic that you don't know about. Don't speak on the other half of other people if you don't know that story. The truth about being authentic and also keeping it simple, but more importantly, right to this point, that you need to choose a topic that you have a unique perspective on. So if that's a perspective that you're like, hey, you know what, from nursing research, this is what I feel is going on, or my unique perspective is being a professor during this time and looking at the next generation coming into nursing, and this is going to affect it this way. I'd almost say only speak to a topic that you're nearly an expert on. And I know we're not all experts in anything, but you gotta be really comfortable with your subject matter. Thanks, Marion. There's Marion's email, you guys. Check chat too. We'll see you. And anybody else have any other, does that make sense? Does that help, Olga?
Yes, it does help, but you know, it's interesting because as we were going through COVID here, it did throw me back into my nursing career back in Russia and how we struggled with PPEs and all these things. And I said to myself, my God, it's almost like having flashbacks.
No, and that is the story. Like, that is the story. Like, my flashback of what happened then versus now. Now, the only thing that I can tell you about TED Talks is there's moments of struggle, but there usually is a culmination of good or breakthrough. We don't usually leave people in a place where there's no hope. So for your guys' story, as much as you don't want it to be like, you know what, nurses are getting the COVID at the rate of 12 times greater than the general public, there is no hope, I don't know why anybody would be a nurse. If you're going to sort of feel like it's sort of in that kind of mode, then you need to empower the audience to do something about the problem that they're seeing, right? So even in my own speech, it was like, here's the problem. 50% of new grads are leaving. 70% of the nursing workforce is over 40. I don't know why anybody's going to be a nurse. Like, I don't know. Like, if we don't change this, I don't know why anybody's going to be a nurse. I sort of laid out for them how I thought you could answer those questions. So for you guys, I think that's what you got to figure out, where and how it goes, and how you, either if you're not giving hope and you're bringing it back, you got to give them something that they can hold on to impact or motivate that change. Does that make sense? And I know we're at 7, so if there's a couple more questions, we can take them, but I hate to run over because I know how busy you guys are, and I like people to know that when they come to a meeting that we start and end on time. So let me know if you guys have some other questions.
Rebecca, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this.
Oh, well, I'm so excited. Thank you guys for participating. I was really nervous. So if you guys can, even on, you know, your LinkedIn or your social media, say, hey guys, I'm preparing for a TED Talk, you can too. We need to get nurses out on TED, you know, using that opportunity to share what we're doing here, I think will be really great from you guys. And we're going to meet again in a couple more weeks. By that time, you need to be in practice mode. Does that make sense? Like, I want you guys to come to me with, and the group with questions like, hey, I'm having a real hard time with this or this. And I wish we, you know, we have a SONSIEL group on LinkedIn. So if you have problems, go ahead and post in the group on LinkedIn on some of those problems that you guys have. If there's some questions that you have, but use the resources that I put forward, watch your TED Talks, but more importantly, you guys got to have this written, like literally by the end of July, in a sense, so that you can start editing, right? Like, you need a first draft. So if I can give you guys a timeline, right now we're looking at, today's the 22nd. By next week, the end of next week, by the 31st, you need to have your rough draft outlined, your 12 paragraphs that you're going to start doing so you can start editing and getting your storyline, right? Because really the last 2 weeks of August, you need to be preparing to record the week of the 24th through the 28th for your submission, right? And that week is really going to be focused on practicing and getting your delivery. The good news is because you guys are recording, if you need to, you could cut and edit. And even if you saw what we've done, John said, say that you mess up, like you get there and you get to the last paragraph and all of a sudden you stutter and you go, oh man, what he wants you to do is to stop, rewind, and repeat from the last sentence because they can edit that out. So say that you haven't and you have one bloop. What I just tell you guys is where you have that bloop is stop, re-record from your most recent sentence and keep going forward. So try to get something on a rough draft, you guys, in the next 10 days. At that point, cut, edit, find some buddies. As the week of like August through August 7th, try to do your talk, like even if you have to read it to 2 or 3 people, read it to them so that they get to view some feedback on what they like, what they want more developed, what they don't like. The week of the 10th, 12th, and 13th, the week of the 17th should really be sort of final run-throughs with friends and families, edits, things like this. And in between, you guys can always reach out to me. I get about 200 emails a week from nurses that I try to keep up with. I work a full-time job in addition to SONSIEL and numerous other things, but I will try to be here. And if I can't get you guys an answer, you can get back to me. You can reach out to each other as well. So don't be shy. You guys got this. Honestly, this is going to be the best documentary ever on TED because I can't wait to hear your stories. So if
When's the documentary going to be done? When is it going to be put on internet?
Yeah, October, I think is the goal. If we can edit all of this, your guys' submissions are due August 31st. I turn them over to John's team, and he has a big team behind them, and they'll edit it. And October, you guys, to end the year of the nurse, you guys will be the first, you will be the TED Year of the Nurse documentary. So congratulations. Thanks for taking the initiative. And no pressure. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm on LinkedIn. If you're not connected, send a message, and I'm really proud of you guys. And we will see you in a couple months. All right, ciao, you guys.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
This, and I'll
Thank
put
you.
this back up for you guys too. Okay, we'll figure out how that happens. I don't know. Ciao.
All right.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.